This is Glenn Kennedy of project.nsearch.com. The person that you're going to hear about in this video is Ed Slade. He was an Area 51 scientist, a good friend of Stu Webb, and he really told everything he knew toward the end of his life, everything that he could tell. And he was killed for this information. I want you to be aware of that. And on part one of this video, you'll notice that Ed is a lot faster talking than he was in part two, and this is because he was being hit by massive microwave weapons. They were giving him strokes. In fact, in the autopsy when he was killed, Stu said that he had over 160 strokes to his brain, so it's a miracle that he lived long enough to give you this information. All I ask is that you support all those involved in this information, getting this information to you. And that is Chris Zucker over at freedomfightersforamerica.com. Support Chris, spread his information everywhere. Also Stu Webb, Super Patriot. Anybody that tells you he's a bad guy is working for the bad guys. So he's an outstanding individual and a good friend of mine, Stu Webb. You can go to his site at stewwebb.com. Spread that information everywhere. You'll be surprised if you put any of it on Facebook, you'll have some little shills come out immediately and attack you. And of course, I'd like you to go and share content on project.nsearch.com. But anyway, I'm going to let you get to it. But just spread this information everywhere, because this man died trying to get you the truth about Area 51 and how the aliens are the fallen angels. So it's time to get right with God, because you're either on two teams. You're either with God's team, the winning team, or if you're apathetic and you don't even believe in God, or even if you're fighting for the dark side, of course, you're on Satan's team. So it's time to get serious about your faith, because Ed Slade was absolutely serious, and he's a super patriot. So enjoy the video, spread them everywhere. Thank you.
Talk show. Recorded live.
You're listening to Freedom Fighters for America World Radio at www.freedomfightersforamerica.com. Tonight we have a super special, and that's with Stu Webb hosting, so stay tuned. Freedom Fighters for America is located at www.freedomfightersforamerica.com, and now Stu Webb.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to host this show this evening. And I have a special guest on. And it's been on Canadian radio before, I think, 2 or 3 times. And he's a former Area 51 scientist, one of few that have survived. He can tell you about the attack and his group that he worked with, who were all killed. There were top scientists. He's built a few weapons, unusual things, met with Mr. President Johnson, built him a special toy for his right pocket, or his left pocket, whichever it was. He used to keep his hand in, and that was a coat arms project, and this man was responsible for that. And we're going to talk about aliens tonight, and we're going to talk about who the aliens really are, and the knowledge coming from a man who was nearly executed on stage with Bo Greitz at a big forum, hit with a weapon, knocked into a coma for quite a period of time, and is here to live at 75 years of age to talk about it. Ed Slade, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Stu.
I'll tell you, why don't you get into your story? Why don't you get into how we're going to do it tonight, so the people of the world that will hear this recording will understand what the aliens are all about.
Well, the aliens start at the beginning, and you have to trace the origin back to the beginning. And we have a record of the aliens in the Bible. And that, unfortunately, or fortunately, as the case may be, is the first discussion of the existence of the aliens. And we take it from there, and 6,000 years have passed. It was encoded in the Kabbalah, and that was a story written by Adam and Eve, who were present at the opening of the garden. And the code is encoded in the text of the King James Version. And unfortunately, nobody is aware of the code. But the code was so preserved at the beginning that everything flows from it. And I just wanted to start right at the beginning and let you run from there, because it takes many different paths by injecting different facts. Now,
go ahead, Ed. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say that the Kabbalah was encoded in a book, and the book was never published until the first year of the seventh century. Now, after the 6th century, you start the 7th century. So at 2001, you start the 7th century, and the book was published, and it was published. The first printing was by Rav Berg, and there's an ISBN which I want to give you, because this is the beginning of everything. And
go ahead. Put it out there.
The ISBN is the Library of Congress number to look up the book. It's 1-57189-076-9. And that's the first volume, the first recorded text of the Bible. And it's the Bible that precedes the King James Version by many years. The King James Version is about 3,500 BC, and this book is about 6,000 BC. And it's very curious, because there's 22 volumes. There's a volume for each story in the Bible, and it was encoded by Adam, and it was preserved for all these years by the people who were close to his family, and it has turned into a religion by people who read it casually, but it's not a religion. It's presented as reality, because it took the lives of these people to write it, and they tell the truth. And that is very unusual, because nowadays nobody tells the truth. And this book said it was true, and it was true by every observer who read the book and tried to change it. And you try to change the truth, and you just step in mud, because once you take a true statement and try to change it, you change the rest of the story unaccountably. I can give you examples, but there's so many examples. In the first sentence of the King James Bible, there's an equivalent Hebrew text, and the Hebrew text is important because God, who wrote this book, says that in the beginning all people of the world spoke Hebrew. So it's important to go back to the Hebrew, and the Kabbalists did that. Now, the first sentence was, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And that's very simple to understand. But it doesn't say what date it was created. It tells the dates later on when you read the whole volume of the King James Version. It discusses the dates. But it very clearly says it in the ancient text. And I'd like to point out that all the words are equivalent for translation. In the beginning, there's a word for beginning and in and the beginning. God created the heavens and the earth. Now, where it says God created, there's a word called ace. E-S is pronounced ace. And ace is a combination of the first letter, alpha, and the last letter, which is tough, A-T. And that word is not translated in the beginning, but it's in the text. And to find the translation, you have to go way into the New Testament, into 2 Peter, into the 3rd chapter, and read on to the 6th chapter, because then it discusses what 8 is. And I just point that out as a code that's included in the Bible, and nobody is aware of it. And they haven't been aware of it since the text was published in 2001. And you now have the text, and you can read it for yourself. But let me say that I have been studying the text since I was 5 years old. And it's new to me every time I read it. So to get a summary of the text in 1 hour or 2 hours is almost impossible after you put 75 years minus 5 to learn how to read. And it's a puzzle. And the puzzle is immense. And only a scholar can look into it. And unfortunately, I self-qualified because I used all my intelligence to gain my lifetime goal, which was to go to the moon. And I created the first machine that was put on the first lunar excursion module to land on the moon. And that was a most exciting thing I ever did. And I look back on my career and I find it astounding. And it opens up so much intelligence that it's hard to describe. But whatever intelligence you gather from this, there's always somebody to say it didn't happen, it won't happen, and give a negative outlook. And this negative outlook, the negative opinions are going to be challenged at the end of the world, which is coming very shortly, because the predictions of the Bible are very clear on the end of the world as we know it. And we are living at a time where everything is in chaos because they're challenging everything that was written and preserved for 6,000 years. And I just wanted to mention what was preserved. The thing that was preserved was the first letter and the last letter. That's going back to the chapter on Peter in the New Testament, 2 Peter, which describes it. And the code has to be described by many sources in
question. You've done some super interesting things, and I'm questioning about things, and you wouldn't speak it because you're a former high-level government clearance. You've met with queens and kings. You could touch on some of that background because I think that people would be interested in that. You worked for Johnson. You could use Johnson as an example when you built the coat of arms toy he carried around his pocket. That would probably be okay because it's not classified anymore. But you've done a lot of interesting things. I've come across many people, not some, in different agencies that are familiar with a lot of the stuff. I've been in Area 51. I mean, we can go back to friends of mine like John Laird Jets, top-level CI pilot. Of course, that was Area 51 Groom Lake. Then you have Area 51 Papoose Lake, which is the alien base. And, Bob Lazar has a website that shows that the aliens are real. BobLazar.com, LAZZAR.com, I believe it is. He was at Area 51 employee. Now, we're going to try to keep this on focus where people understand it, who don't have any idea of this bigger picture of what has really gone on. But I'm going to kind of give a brief real quick of where we're at right now and how we got there. Ed's going to explain it. But what we have is 100 Illuminati bankers in the world that control 90% of the wealth of the world, folks. 100 families control, 100 men, not families, men, control 90% of the wealth of the world. In the United States, which was taken over by, I refer to as the Bush, Millman, Linder, Clinton crime family, which is on StuWeb.com, www.StuWeb.com, right up there, the flow chart. Take a look at it. 3 legs of Iran-Contra. All this theft for the past 30 years, the killing of President Kennedy, the coup d'etat on Jimmy Carter's election, October surprise, coup d'etat that they did in the 2000 election against the duly elected, what I call President of the United States from the year 2000, Albert Gore. These people have wiped out America financially. And where I'm talking about the wealth, listen to the number. In 1981, the House Banking Committee, Henry Gonzalez, who I worked with, he was chair during the 80s and 90s. In 1981, he was on the committee that the GAO ordered up, and the United Nations done similar numbers, opened up and said that 1% of the population controlled 20% of the wealth of the United States, corporations, everything, the wealth, period. And in 1981, us, the American people, 99% of us controlled 80% of the block of that wealth. Today, it is totally reversed, and they're controlling between 90 and 95% of the wealth because they kept stealing through all these frauds, junk bond, daisy chain fraud, savings and loan fraud, current bank bailout frauds, Enron frauds. It's always the same people. Now, some of the people that are involved in this, what they call the Illuminati bankers, 100 that control the world, there's 3 segments in this, 3 elements, fractions, should we say. One's called the European Illuminatis, one's called the Asian Illuminati, and the third is the American Illuminati.
Yes.
Now, in America, some of the ones are like George Herbert Walker Bush, my former father-in-law, Leonard Millman, who now is running the show for him, is Larry Mizell in Denver, Colorado. David Rockefeller, Lawrence Rockefeller, that deceased a few years ago, was worth $6 trillion when he died personally. Illuminati banker. W.R. Grace died here a couple of years ago, but his son took over for him, Illuminati banker. Henry Kissinger, Illuminati banker. These are the American Illuminati bankers. Carl Linder, Chiquita Bananas, Ohio, Linder Financial Empire, should we say, 3 legs of Iran-Contra, Illuminati banker. I've come to realize, and it's tough for me to do this, and I've talked to Ed about it, I've talked to others about it. I've talked to some high-level people that are connected to Area 51. I've talked to high-level people of our government, other governments, over the years about this. this alien connection. There's nothing alien to it at all, folks. And the 100 Illuminati bankers, this is going to be far-fetched for some people to handle tonight. But there's bloodlines of these things.
Well,
these Illuminati bankers.
When you go to the bloodline, you go back and back and back until you hit ground zero, which is Adam and Eve. It turns out that in the Adam and Eve story, it was written down by Adam after he was kicked out of the garden. And the text exists in the ISBN that I quoted in the book called the Zohar. The Zohar is the illumination, and that is the story of the beginning of the world, starting with Adam and Eve, and they explain it in a very nice, concise manner. And now that it's published, everybody is trying to change it, but you can't change the text. It was written on stone. It was not written by Moses. He came 1,000 years later, 1,400 years later. And in the 1,400 years, there was a stone monument of the Zohar, and the Zohar was seen by humans, and specifically was seen by Julius Caesar. He saw the stone monument of the Zohar sitting in front of the temple of the library in Alexandria, Egypt. And he saw it there at the time of the fire that was destroyed the temple. And when the fire was destroyed the temple, Julius Caesar took the Zohar back to Rome. It was gigantic. It was a 300-foot-long pyramid monument, and he put it on a ship and took it to Rome. Now, that story is connected with the Ark, the Noah's Ark. It turns out that stone was the keel of Noah's Ark, and it was inscribed by hand by Adam and Eve, Adam and his son Seth. Seth was the third son who helped him write it, and they took the original text to Noah, and Noah put it in the ark, and he was told by God to build an ark, and the keel was the Zohar. That's how it was preserved all of these thousands of years. But it hasn't been published in the West until 2001. And it's hard to start in the middle where we just jumped to the year Adam Weishaupt, when he made the Illuminati. He jumped to the year 1750, and he created the Illuminati, but he had knowledge of the Zohar that was never published. And now that it's published, everybody is in a tizzy trying to figure out who said what first and who thought of the plan to disrupt the world and cause all the chaos which we now see in the world. And God is very upset to see this chaos, because God doesn't lie and he doesn't cause chaos. And he says that if the chaos continues any further, he'll come back and destroy all the people who are causing the chaos. And that's the Armageddon philosophy. And people who study it are engulfed in this thought, and you can't help getting engulfed in it because it seems so true when you read it from the beginning. And
now, Ed, real quick, a lot of evangelical Christians and Christians in general believe that there's the end time prophecies. Many feel that we're in it because many of us see it. Okay, we see the tracks on the walls, and they're caused by what we call the Illuminati. Now, for an explanation real fast, so the people that have never heard about what Illuminati is, simply take the back of a Federal Reserve note, $1 bill, $1 bill, and look at the pyramid with the all-seeing eye. That's Lucifer. And then his 100 Illuminati underneath him is the first layer of bricks on that pyramid. And then it goes down to, spreads out into the crime syndicate, these 100 families that control 90% of the wealth of the world and the governments. Now, these are humans that are in control of all this money for this, they call the gray men's empire. It's like my former father-in-law, Illuminati banker, reportedly died, and I believe he's dead. And I understand now what's going on. His body stashed by these so-called aliens because they were jumping in and out of him. And the Illuminati bankers don't perform human sacrifices to Satan. They're Satanists, Luciferians, they call themselves, the humans. It's all tied to, they call them the aliens, but they're not aliens. They're fallen angels, folks. The reality of it is they're fallen angels, not aliens. And it says in Genesis 6 that they mate with humans because they find them fond. They have sex with them. They have children by them. And that deals with a lot of things that I've seen over the years, and many people have stories, and Barbara Hartwell has one, former CIA operative, special census, 2 extra strains of DNA in her. Great gal, but, she had injected in her mother's womb when she was an infant. When she was in her womb. And they injected these strains of DNA. They've experimented on humans. These things, these creatures, they call them reptilians. People that are in the know. David Icke touches on them. DavidIcke.com. He's written books about this stuff. TransformationofAmerica.com. Kathy O'Brien touches on it. That the shapeshift. George Herbert Walker Bush shapeshifted in front of her. And she was what was known as a worldwide Bush crime syndicate that kidnapped, in the category of sex slaves, children, young girls. They do it with boys even. And it's sick stuff that goes on with these Satanists. But these are what they call the Illuminati bankers. And they're all Satanists. And people have to understand, we're trying to explain, I'm bringing it up to kind of the current date, as I call him the professor and have for years, Ed Slade, former Area 51 top government scientist that's here with us tonight. Well, these creatures drink blood. They kill infants. I've reported on it since 2001. It took me an understanding from 1984 to 2001 about what my ex-in-law was doing, killing children and drinking its blood and hosting the party twice a year on the summer solstice and the winter solstice, which is June the 21st and December the 22nd, that these Satanists worship upon. And it's ironic that these 2012 end-time prophecies that are on the History Channel right now end on December the 22nd, 2012. But that date of December the 22nd is a satanic holiday. Now, what's interesting is, Ed, our friends that used to host a little get-together you and I used to attend in Las Vegas, she knew Anton LaVey's son, Anthony, who's a Christian minister, who was castrated, folks, castrated, on the altar of Satan at the Kimball Castle in Sedalia, Colorado, south of Denver, between Denver and Colorado Springs. He was castrated. And before he was castrated, he had been locked up, and it's in a radio interview of Anthony up on StuWeb.com. And it's up there in the recording. You go up there and click on live. Look under table contents. Go down the left-hand column. Look at Leonard Millman, Satanism. This was a 13-year-old kid that was castrated, left to be dead. One of the security guards happened to take him to the hospital and drop him off at the emergency room and run, because he sees some other kids dragging him out of the house. In that interview, he talks about being locked up in the secret underground tunnel underneath Leonard Millman's house at number 1 Eudora Street, Denver, Colorado. I want you all to listen to that. I'm going to leave it as that. The fallen angels are the aliens. They want blood. Now, there was a top-level secret agreement of 1954 to 2012 between the aliens and the United States of America's government. And it touches into what 60 Minutes talked about back in the 1990s that Al Martin of AlMartinRaw.com, the Iran-Contra whistleblower, has in his book, The Conspirators, about CZX Corp. Casey Zumwalt X-Files. And 60 Minutes didn't pay him, so they didn't get the understanding of what it meant. CZX Corp is Casey Zumwalt X-Files, folks. They got to have a front company to hide identity. You got it. But, Ed, I'm going to let you have it.
Well, Stu Webb has one attack on the Illuminati, which is very factual, and I must say it's very, you lose your temper when you study it, because I have looked at it from a different point of view. I looked at it that the aliens are the descendants of the children that were manufactured when the creatures were kicked out of heaven and they kicked out to earth. So the angels who were serving God rebelled, and they were kicked out, and 1/3 of the angels landed on the earth. And the Bible describes what went on. They mated with children that they found by walking to and fro on the earth. And they were the first rank of children were the gods of different religions, because they were intelligent and they instructed their followers about religion. So you have to see the Buddhism, the Taoism, the Oriental religions, the Middle Eastern religions. They came from the children of the fallen angels, and they had children, and the children are existing today. Now, in the 1900s, there was such a crowd of fallen angel children that they united and they formed the Illuminati. They were all genetically derived from the fallen angels. Now, the war that resulted from 1750, when Adam Weishaupt announced that he formed the Illuminati with 10 different people who were descendants, is the beginning of the Rothschild Empire, and it spread to an amazing number of people. Now, we have the names of all the people from that date, and I look at it very factually to see who they are. Now, it turns out that they all are bankers. Rothschild was just a nickname called Red Shield. And there's so many jokes of how the name got started that it's illuminating to you to read it 3,300 years later. It's amusing because it's true. But I looked at it for all the facts that Stu Webb created in his text, and he has thousands of facts, and each fact he backs up with text. And I have spent 75 years of my life analyzing the people, and I've interrogated the people behind the stories, and I've never found Web to be in error. When you speak to the people and they trust you, they give you the truth, and the truth is all of the facts that Stu Webb has disclosed, but in disclosing it, he loses his temper because they're so unbelievable. And
yeah, I do that.
And I try to not lose my temper and to examine the facts. And if a certain person lives in Colorado, I check him out. And there is a person, there is an address, and he has a following. And if you're lucky enough to speak to these people, because I have been to Rothschild, I've been to the Queen of England, I've been to Johnson, the president, and I've had very private conversations. For example, when I spoke to Johnson, he said, "You guys make the Colt 16." And at that time, I did make the Colt 16 with the company. And he said, "I need a machine gun the size of a pistol, because if anybody's going to assassinate me in a parade, I'm going to whip out my machine gun and take out the whole bunch of people." So I said, "You can only take out 20 people because there's 20 bullets in a Colt." He said, no, make it 30 bullets. I want to make sure I get everybody. So we made a weapon that was like the F-16. We did it fast. We sawed off the stock. We sawed off the barrel and made it shorter. And we put 30 bullets in a magazine. And we did that lickety-split. And we got it so it fit in his pocket. We got it so short and so quick that it fit in his pocket with a holster. And he had it on his person when he went to conferences in the street, and he was out in public, and he felt secure that he could answer an attack. And of course, he was not attacked, and a lot had to do with the people knew he had a weapon, but they didn't test him. And he felt secure, and our job was done. And things like that make Stu Webb's story real, because after all the shooting and all the chaos, I met with the director of the war, the Vietnamese War, and he was 95 when I met him, and he lamented that he lost the war because he got bad orders. His order was self-defeating, and that was an overview of a personal opinion. Now, those personal opinions take wings, and they circulate, and I can't dispute them because they were the real feelings of Westmoreland, who was in charge of the war, and he was very sad at age 95 that he didn't win because he's a winner, and he was held back by political decisions. And when Stu Webb talks about it, I never found an error in his discussion, but he gets a little rambunctious, and the people attack Stu Webb instead of attacking the feeling of Westmoreland or the feeling of the person who was defeated.
Well, we aren't defeated yet, and I thank you for the compliments, Professor, and the same to you, and you know that. Here's what I want to do. We're talking about fallen angels, which are the aliens, cast out of heaven when the war happened, and it's in the Bible, it's in the Word. And then they're down here. It starts with in the Garden of Eden, first mating of humans with aliens. And then it talks about it in Genesis 6 for those of you Christians out there can go look up your scriptures. And then there's a generational. And it's just like I found, folks, I married into the Bush crime syndicate, probably a fallen angel's daughter, from what I understand. And that's hard to swallow, and it's been hard to swallow for over a year, especially since I was kept from my own child for 25 years. It's over her soul is what it's over, because they sell their own children and grandchildren's souls. Whether my ex was a daughter of a fallen angel, I don't know that. I know that Leonard was occupied by something huge to be in that Illuminati 100. And I'm beginning to believe that the Illuminati 100 bankers are not human. That's the reason they're controlling. Like Millman, controlling 90% of the world's wealth. It's the satanic side of it. A lot of Christians believe it's the mark of the beast. 666 can't buy or sell. It's coming. Well, they've already got everybody marked. Everybody's seen. Everybody's heard. And you say, no, yes. The whole planet is covered at every minute. They know what's going on. The alien technology that we have today is down in the form of computers and other things that we use on a daily basis. And to bring them up to speed, Ed, I'd like for you to touch on, and I'm just going to keep quiet on the Adam and Eve connection and give them a quick history lesson, should we say, of things over the years that, the different fallen angels over the centuries have come about, how they're there today. But I also want to address one other thing, Ed, because I didn't do it, and I'm trying to throw in my opinion along with a professional like you that was there. I asked you a couple of times in Las Vegas when you were sitting on my couch in my living room. Kidding with you first, I asked you because I was really serious about it, and I remember your answer. And the answer was no. And I asked you the simple question. I said, you thought they were aliens, but if you had known that they were fallen angels, would you have worked for them? And I remember your answer being no twice, 2 different times. But you didn't know, did you?
Looking back at that conversation, I still maintain no as an answer. But all the questions keep changing with time, because the more you learn, the more your question gets developed. And when the first alien that created was Cain, because Adam and Eve had two children, and the first one was Cain, and he was created with Satan as the father. And you have to read the Genesis very carefully to discover that, because after Cain was born, shortly thereafter, which means he had a twin brother, shortly thereafter, Abel was born, but Abel was created by God. So Eve had two husbands, make two children that came at birth at the same time. Now, it started with the aliens coming from the children of Cain, and Abel was killed by Cain, and God put a mark on Cain so that no one would kill him, but they would ignore him. And in the Zohar, it recounts a story, which is a whole book, a story in the fourth book of the Zohar, that Cain was walking around on the earth to and fro, and he just stumbled into the garden of Lamech. Lamech was the father of Noah. Now, Lamech was very old, and Cain stumbled into his garden at night, and Lamech said, well, somebody's here, but it was dark, and he couldn't see anyway. And he picked up a rock, and he killed Cain, not knowing who it was. And the story is in the Zohar, and I asked the question to Bible class, if Noah was saved in the ark, and all his family was saved, why didn't they save Lamech? Nobody knew. And they said, oh, it's probably in the Bible, I'll look it up. And they couldn't find it, because that is not included. It's one book in the Zohar, and it's a small book in the King James Version. They delineated a whole book into one page, just talking about Noah. And they leave out all the infighting and all the political controversy that occurred at that time. Now, that has not been lost. That is in the Library of Congress, and you can read it. And if you start reading, it's 22 volumes, big volumes, and you'll be dead by the time you read the whole 22 volumes. That's why you have scholars to summarize the story, because I feel that you can't make an intelligent opinion unless you summarize the original story. Now, if you summarize that, a scholar will say, I'll summarize it for you if you stand on one foot until I'm finished. And of course, the longest I've been able to summarize is 8 days. I have spoken on these stories for 8 days continuously. And it's not a world's record, because somebody beat me by 11 days without sleeping by standing in 42nd Street in Manhattan. And he was in a glass box, and he was talking to everybody in front of him. And he stood awake for 11 days, and it could be done. If you're really enthusiastic about the subject, you can talk for endless time. And then when you pass out, you pass out. But a philosopher says, I will tell you all I know if you will stay awake for as long as I can tell you. And nobody can do that because the average person has trouble after the first or second day of staying awake. And find the story of Noah's family. Noah didn't take his father because his father broke the commandment, thou shalt not kill, and he killed accidentally Cain. God said to the people on the world, don't kill Cain, and he did. So he's not going to be judged. He's going to be judged because he broke the commandment. And God is merciful by his own testimony. So if he's taken to heaven, he'll go through the first jury, which is Jesus. The second jury is 1,000 years after the people have been educated again. And that's the white throne judgment, where God decides who's saved and who's not. So there's two Armageddon. There's one for Jesus, who is the Savior, and white throne judgment is from God himself to choose the loyal people. Now, in such a situation, Lamech might survive. But Lamech's father was Methuselah. And God said to Methuselah, as long as you live, I will not harm the earth. But if you read the Bible, and you have to use a magnifying glass to read the King James Version, on the day that Methuselah died, the flood began. That's how close everything was predicted by God when he wrote the Bible. Methuselah lived, and everybody was happy, but the rest of the world was unrighteous. And when Methuselah died at 969 years, then God said the rest of the world is corrupt, and he gave Noah 100 years to build the ark. So for 100 years he was building it, and in that 100 years the Zohar was put on the keel. These are the inside stories of the people who believe the Kabbalah. The book is called the Zohar, and that's the book I referred to on ISBN. And the ISBN number, if anybody is really, really interested, and they're not afraid to read and not be able to put the book down, I'll give the number again so that they can get a pencil and check it out. It's so important because all the stories flow from the ISBN.
Go ahead and give it out again there, Ed.
Yes? It's 1-57189-076-9. And that was published the first day of the 7th millennium. And God said he will destroy the world as we know it in the 7th millennium. and there's been so much activity on that subject. And fast forward to 1750, when Adam Weishaupt got into the act by forming the Illuminati with the descendants of the fallen angels. It's been a very vicious story, and the chaos is great, and God really is going to put his foot down to remove the chaos.
Now, Ed, let's take it from, say, 1940s. What's happened since the 40s with the alien connection? Into cloning, into everything, into flying saucers. Tell us, you told me a story one time. Maybe you can talk about it, about meeting someone in New Mexico. Remember? Experiment.
It's an unusual year. The year to pick is 1933. That's the year that Roosevelt took power in the United States. And the first thing he did was make the law saying gold is not money. And that is a constitutional absurdity, because the Constitution defines money in terms of ounces of gold. And 1 ounce of gold was $20. And all the $20 pieces were 1 ounce of gold. And when Roosevelt took office, the first thing he did was to say, okay, we have a depression, turn in your gold because it's no good. I command the law that all the gold has to be held by the Treasury. So bring your gold in. And that was a non sequitur, because it didn't make sense. If gold is no good, then money is no good. And we see the result of that law today, because the money is not gold, it's a Federal Reserve note, which is paper. And
which, by the way, just got audited for the very first time, thanks to Dr. Ron Paul, Congressman Ron Paul.
Well, Ron Paul is trying to bring it back to the point where the gold is effective. Now, he has done that where it's a freely floating market of gold. It has its own worth, and the worth is made by humans, and that's the problem. God made the worth of gold $20 an ounce, and he kept it there for many years, many centuries. But humans have taken the worth of gold and made it. Now it's over $1,000 per ounce, which is fabrication. They just say it's worth it.
And it's pushing to 15. We'll hit 15, I believe, soon.
Well, they'll hit 3,000. They'll hit any number that they think of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's bizarre, because that causes the chaos. If you have no discipline in monetary finance, all of the objections that you make, and you make it very vociferously, I checked the version, and
We're coming up.
Ed, hold on, Ed. We're having a problem here. Being heard.
Yeah, Stu, we're coming up on an hour. We're going to go into a 2 minutes, 2 minute,
Ed?
7-second break.
Okay, Ed, are you there with me?
Yeah,
Okay, we can hardly hear you.
Okay, we're going to go to break, and we'll be right back with Ed Slade and Stu Webb doing the hosting for this show. on this. And this is Freedom Fighters for America World Radio, www.freedomfightersforamerica.com. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We want to welcome you back to Freedom Fighters for America Radio. We have been having some technical difficulties here, and our host and our guests are back on the air. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris, and thank you for playing that. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to end the show. We're going to make it 2 parts. We're going to do another hour with Chris, if you'll do that, Chris.
Sure. We'll
set another day. We can't get communications with Ed. They've blown a speaker out in his phone. I've had that happen myself on ground lines. Mm-hmm. And they do it, with their toys to keep him off. We're going to be back. Stu Webb, this is Stu Webb, and I call him Professor Ed Slade, former U.S. scientist. And we're going to finish the discussion. I'm going to end it with this: food for thought, especially to you Christians out there and you believers in God and the ones that will want to be on the right side. This is good versus evil, and we're in a very tough time. Think about your enemy. If this is your enemy and you don't even know it exists, can't you destroy it with your belief, prayer against the enemy? I'm going to leave us with that and ask each and every person that heard this show to get down on their hands and knees before God Almighty and ask Him if we're bringing you the truth. And if not, to judge me and Ed. With that, have a good night, folks.
Live.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Freedom Fighters for America World Radio at www.freedomfightersforamerica.com. Tonight we have part 2 in a series of the Alien Connections Exposed with Mr. Stu Webb hosting. Stu?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And today is December the 14th, Monday, 2009, and I want to thank Chris, freedomfightersforamerica.com, for allowing me the time or the opportunity to host this show. Now, we were blown off the air last night. There's another recording, a little over an hour recording, that we did regarding the alien connection in Area 51. Not only myself, Stu Webb, but with one of our former U.S. scientists, Ed Slade. And before I get into the Area 51 connection, I just want to bring an update that today one of the Division Number 5 FBI stooges that are considered to be very dangerous, who go around demonizing and slandering Tom Hennigan and I. And, of course, I think you've been hit by him as well on a few times, Chris. As far as their slander, the guy was arrested on terroristic charges in New York City for supposedly what I understand to be threatening the police chief in New York City. But what's ironic, he's throwing around Stu Webb and Tom Hennigan's name every place as though we're some kind of associate of his. Probably one of those get-out-of-free-jail cards trying to get us both arrested because of what we're doing. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. So there's maybe something in the New York Post this evening regarding this. And, of course, the police department's been talked to by us today. So, anyway, with that, it's my honor once again to say hi to Ed Slade. How are you, Ed?
Fine, Stu.
Now, tell me what we're going to get into tonight. We touched on a lot of things. Last night, they blew your phone apart. Your microphone on your telephone is only putting out about, 3 or 4% of its normal volume?
Well, I had it up to maximum. Whatever came through is lucky for us.
Yeah.
We're on a landline now. Is the voice okay?
Yes, you're fine, Ed. So
Good.
why don't we try to pick up where we were leaving off last night regarding the fallen angels being the aliens, so those that are Christians can have a good understanding of this.
Okay. Well, I wanted to go back to the beginning of the beginning. It's hard to prove the documentation because there is none. All we know is that there was a war in heaven, and God kicked out 1/3 of the aliens, kicked out 1/3 of the angels who turned into rebellious aliens. And he kicked them out. He didn't go to Pluto. He sent them to the earth. And he sent the chief angel, Satan, he sent them to the Garden of Eden. Because if you read the Bible, it had to be written by somebody, and there was nobody there except God. So the angels were sent to earth on purpose, and what revolved is history. History is his story, and his is God's story. He gave a specific story of the aliens and their cohorts from the beginning of the world as we know it. And it's recorded generation by generation in the Bible to Jesus. And from Jesus, you can look to the Arabs to find out who the descendants were. Because if you talk to any Arab, he can give you the ancestry of his family back to Allah, which is a false god that the Judeo-Christian God doesn't approve of. And that fight has been going on since time began. But quantum mechanics says time is irrelevant because you can't define time. So we are living in an amazing opportunity where we live in a Kabbalistic interpretation of the world. And that interpretation says nothing is real. Everything we see with our eyes and we see and measure with our senses is a fiction. Everything is imagination. And all people on the earth today are imagination to each other and to themselves. That's the real message of the Zohar, which was written with the help of the prophets and helped by God. And all these people are challenged by science, which says not only is time unmeasurable, but quantum mechanics makes everything invisible and unmeasurable. If you keep going down and down into smaller distances, you cannot measure what you're seeing. And it's a very confusing thing. But the devil, Satan, rebelled from all of this because God said to all the angels, he said, I wish to create man in my own image. And he created human beings, namely Adam and Eve. But you have to read the Bible to read it carefully, because after he created the 7 races, all the races were created first. White, black, brown, yellow, red, they were all created, and even blue people were created in Tennessee. Every color was created by God in the 6 days of creation. On the 7th day, he said he rested. Now, each one of the 6 days was blessed. Monday was blessed,
Sunday was blessed. Tuesday was not blessed. No, wait a minute. Saturday was blessed twice. If you read the King James Version, Sunday was the first day after creation, and after the Sabbath, Monday was the first day. Tuesday was not blessed, and only scholars who read the Bible with a magnifying glass can tell you quickly that that is the only day of creation that was not blessed. Tuesday was not blessed. It's blah, 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 but not blessed.
Without getting into a massive history lesson on, and I know you like to give history lessons and background on everything that you talk about, Ed. Condense it where it comes from the beginning of the earth with the fallen angels. They were here. They were cast out of heaven. They're down here on the planet. Let's take it to the 1940s, 1930s.
I have to summarize what I was saying, and I'll go there.
I understand.
But be sure that the Zohar is authoritative, written by the prophets and supported by God. Now, each page in the King James Version can be represented by a volume of the Zohar. There's 22 volumes, and when you read that, then you'll really be befuddled, because it has so much infighting and understanding that you understand who the angels are, who the fallen angels are, and what they're about, what they're trying to do.
Now, there are some missing books in the King James Version. Enoch is mentioned in there, and the Book of Enoch and some others. Jasper, I think it is. Some others that people have been able to supposedly obtain the scriptures on. And there's books out there on this. And they're quite interesting when you read these other ones. They're what they call the missing books of the Bible. You've seen some of them. I mean, I think it's in the book of Jasper, I think it is, that talks about Sodom and Gomorrah and how evil it was, and gets into real detail before God destroyed it, what it was doing, and the whole city. It was that bad.
Yes.
But there are the missing books that people could become familiar with. But I think that we covered a lot of bases last night before you were blown off on real good history, should we say, that people can go back to the first recording, last night's recording, Sunday, December the 13th, there on freedomfightersforamerica.com. But I heard from a few people today, Ed, that want you to touch on today, how it relates to today, how the angels, I mean, you were a scientist at Area 51. You worked there. There's things that you could never reveal. I've said things to you that have triggered you that I'm aware of, and I saw your face light up on a few things. I could say things right now that on this telephone that would send them totally ballistics. But there was an agreement that a lot of people know about, and it's out there. It's not, should we say, secret anymore. There was Roswell occurred. It was the first alien contact, should we say, in our time, more or less, to where they made their appearance. But 1954 to 2012, they made an agreement, did they not, with the U.S. government?
Yes.
Why did they make that agreement?
They made an agreement with Eisenhower. Eisenhower was told by the aliens, we have to be friends. You have to tell us everything. We have to tell you everything. We're friends. They shake hands and sign this paper, and he did. There is a written agreement with the aliens.
And in this agreement, there's quite a few things that I'm aware of, was the technology trade. In other words, they would give us technology for bases here in the United States.
Yes, they did.
Lake, Nevada.
Yes, they did. And Eisenhower had a real problem because he had good advisors and he had many helpful, intelligent people. And the most intelligent people he could get analyzed the situation and said, look, the aliens want something. What they wanted to eat 1 million people a year for the blood. And they came out and said to Eisenhower, look, we like blood, so let us eat your people that you don't like too. You have people you don't like, and we don't like them, so we'll eat them. And he said, well, why do you want me to sign this? It's crazy. But they said, if you don't sign, we'll eat you. So Eisenhower had to back off and said, look, we can't stop the aliens because they can do anything. Their technology is so far in advance because they're fallen angels. They have the technology of God. They have been angels for 1 billion years. They're immortal. So how can we fight them? We can't fight them. We can't kill them. We can't outsmart them. So I have to sign. If they want to give me technology, we'll use the technology and use American influence, American engineering to increase the technology. And that's why he signed it, because he had no choice. He didn't want to be eaten by the aliens. That was clear. So he led the 1 million people that he didn't like to be eaten. So the FBI was told, well, you don't keep records on disappearing people. And when they disappear, the CIA don't mention it. And when they disappear somebody that objects to what we're doing, don't mention it. So meanwhile, 1 million people a year were homeless people, were swept off the streets, and the alien says, look, we're doing you a favor. We're taking all the homeless people. So Eisenhower said, okay, we don't do anything to object, but in the meantime, what's the technology you have? So they said, we'll teach you how to make a flying saucer. So Eisenhower said, that's good. We like that. So they began the UFO projects, and there were many projects, and they all were specifically valuable to the U.S. military. Now, one in particular was the Invisibility Project. But you have to understand the aliens didn't stop with Eisenhower. They went to 12 countries, and they gave the treaty to each country. They gave it to Iraq. They gave it to Russia. They gave it to Israel. And each one was given a different technological gift. So they told Israel, well, we'll make you invisible. We'll show you how to do it. And Israel jumped at the chance. They said, okay, if we help you, you'll help us. So the war broke out right away between Israel and the United States, because the United States was working on invisibility prior to the gift to Israel, and they didn't have it perfected. So Israel had invisibility first. So you want to get back into 1940 and up history, I'll tell you, the Germans had all the secrets that the aliens could give them. They said, as long as you kill the Jews, we'll give you secrets. And I lectured with Werner von Braun in New York, and that was a very illuminating lecture, because when you got Werner von Braun alone, he knew so much that making a rocket to the moon was child's play. And I taught rocket theory in New York University for 6 years. And everybody made fun of rockets at that time, and they said, "Oh, he's a rocket scientist. He's so dumb. He's a rocket scientist." And the rocket scientist had the technology, and it was brought down by human technology. But Wernher von Braun had it beyond that. He had real technology. And to talk to him privately, you can get secrets, even though he was sworn for all the secrets in the world. But the way that I got secrets was I was sworn to secrets. But when a secret is published, it's not a secret anymore. So you can disseminate it because legally you can't be attacked. So when you're a secret agent, the way you get confidence is to know the published secrets that have just been published. So it's not a secret anymore. So you have the edge of the curve, the learning curve. And if you're in the government for 55 years, as I was, you know what secrets are released. And if you go to another country, you can tell in confidence to a leader the new secret that's released by the United States government, but it's not released to a foreign country. And you get their confidence by saying, "I'll tell you a secret in confidence." And once you do, you become a magnet for their secrets. And very quickly you find out as an American, because I was born in America and I'm a national to start with, that if you're a national, you're 100% true blue American. And unfortunately, I was a patriot. But you're a patriot transplanted when you travel overseas after the war, and everybody was hurting. So the governments wanted to improve their position. And when you talk to them privately and say, well, you want to improve, one of the ways to improve is a secret, but I'll tell you a release secret in the U.S., and they think that that's words from God because it was a secret, but it's no longer a secret, and they confess and they tell you their secrets. So pretty soon you find out that every agreement that was made with the United States was made with every country that I visited. I've been in 10 countries, and they all had secrets that they thought that only they had.
And it turned out to be that the aliens were giving everybody the same stuff then, what they want.
You bet. You bet.
Okay, so Ed, you know now that they're fallen angels, but during the time that you worked at Area 51, I mean, you saw these things, and you even met, I heard a story, and I can't discuss it, it's up to you, about, a pyramid deal in Mexico, meeting with something 7 foot tall, but if you want to discuss that, but you dealt with this, and it is Papoose Lake, Nevada. And for those that are listening to get it a little bit deeper, there's the hole behind Denver, Colorado, called the Glory Hole Mine, the Colorado chain of mines. That's the secret. I've said it before, and it's nothing secret because it's not.
Well,
but the Argol Tunnel, they call it, ARGO Tunnel, is where the Western White House and Western Capitol is built in case of nuclear attack. It's the reason they back up everything at the Denver Federal Center on 6th Avenue, and it's all underground, but they've got all these underground interconnecting tunnels, including over to Denver International Airport, of which I exposed all the underground facility when they built it, because I was the whistleblower along with Dick Young, former admiral, now disbarred attorney, who had come against them and testified on the Denver airport scandal and $15 billion project. But that all intertwines with that article. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of other places that they have bases. Dulce, Sedona, Arizona, where they rejuvenate bodies, do they not, Ed?
Well, I like to keep it historical and reasonable, that we can understand when we start saying, do you know we rejuvenate, and do you know where all the bodies are buried? Yes, I do know, but I ain't telling everybody all at once.
Okay.
And Steve, you know about all of the, you know about half the bodies that I know that are buried, and you talk about it, and I often ask you, I don't know how you survive, because anybody that has enough courage to write it on the internet, I mean, should be dismissed in 5 seconds. They should vaporize you, and you've been arrested and you've been tortured, but you still survive. So I made it a business practice to tell everything secretly to the people who had secrets, and they kept their secret, and they kept my secret too.
Okay. So, Ed, what we have is we have these creatures, DavidIkey.com, he's written about it, Transformation America, I mentioned last night, Kathy O'Brien, saw George Herbert Walker Bush shapeshift, and some of these others. Now we discussed this last night, these 100 Illuminati bankers. They call them Illuminati because the all-seeing one, the devil, Lucifer, the fallen angel that was cast down with the other angels, is the head honcho, should we say, of these fallen ones that claim to be quote-unquote aliens. And I mentioned last night also that people can go and look on Bob Lazar, LAZZAR.com, who was also an employee at Area 51 that exposed the base on the moon and the base on Mars. He has pictures of them. They look like pyramids. And you go up there, John Laird, test pilot, Area 51, is also involved with Bob Lazar in the past and getting that website up and so forth. So there's a lot of evidence that's out there of this. There's a lot of people that have seen him shapeshift, so forth. And I'm aware from others, and I'm stating this publicly, that have claimed that top-level people, I'll put it that way, in government, have seen this and claimed that Kissinger and Lawrence Rockefeller, that's now dead, or, 4 years ago, that George Herbert Walker Bush, Henry Kissinger, all shapeshift, they call it. That means they can turn from the human look to the reptilian look. Are you aware of that?
This is a kindergarten in shape-shifting.
We got to do it for the listeners.
I'm the wrong person to tell it to, because I was with the CIA and I was cleared for secret, and I signed all kinds of promises that I would never tell the secret. So I'm in a position where I'm not allowed to tell secrets to anybody, and I never have. But I
never signed anything, and I've learned things over the years, and
Yes, and if you did, they want to know who did you learn it from, and if you tell, they torture you until you tell, and then when you tell who you learned it from, that person is evaporated. He doesn't exist anymore.
Well, okay, you're talking about evaporations. How about the death ray, Area 51, about 5 days ago? Pulled my guts up out of my stomach, nearly blew out my appendix and my liver at the same time, and I went into convulsions, throwing up and, pardon the expression, crapping on myself at the same time. I couldn't do anything about it. I'd say they hit me pretty hard, meant to kill me. And I was even told that because someone has access to that stuff that indicated this, that's what they did.
Well,
now, Ed, I'm not afraid of this stuff because I've had the devil, and I say this publicly, and I'm not a nutcase. I had the devil, the goat-headed demon, Baphomet, in my bedroom. Came before my child was born in 1984, 3 weeks before. I relate it back to the summer solstice, which is June the 21st of 1984. And it knocked the door down, bumped into the house. By the time I'm awake, realizing what's going on, it's standing at the end of my bed. And I'm looking at this thing. Looked like a pear from the head to the waist. Had goat's knees on it. Had a goat's nose on it. It was sitting there masturbating, banging its tail off the wall. And all I could feel was death upon me. And I closed my eyes, and I said, in the name of Jesus and by the blood of Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, I command you out of here now, Satan. And I heard a whirlwind, and I heard a big bang, and I jumped straight up off the bed off of my back. And I got a pregnant wife next to me. And as I hit the bed to try to keep from missing her, and I bounced onto the floor, grabbing my pants and running to my file cabinet to get a gun that was hidden from her so I wouldn't get shot because she was acting like a lunatic during this period of time because of her background, child abuse, now adult syndrome. I get the gun. Here God has already taken power and authority as a Christian, as a believer, and I didn't have the faith that I have today, but yet he saved me from this.
Well,
and I find out some years later that what they do is the devil summoned up when they do these satanic ceremonies, of which I reported on. My ex-father-in-law, Leonard Noman, one of the Illuminati bankers, and that he was hosting these satanic parties. I've come to a bigger equation in understanding this over the past year, and it's hard for me to swallow. I got a child I haven't seen. She's 25 years of age. They illegally took her through the courts, illegally, because her mother tried to murder her when she was 28 days old. And they illegally took and terminated my parental rights, did it again illegally without me even knowing about it, with a lifetime restraining order out of Denver, Colorado, illegally, signing my names, doing fraud upon the court and everything, saying I took $1.5 million to give her up for life with permanent lifetime restraining order. None of that happened. I'm challenging that now soon in court. I've started my actions against them. But here's the point. I know that this is real, and it's a spiritual battle down here for all Christians to understand and those that believe in God. That they have to understand who the enemy is. Because those that are listening that don't understand, we got fallen angels walking around in the form of so-called aliens, and they're trading technology for their space here on the planet and to do what they want to do.
Exactly.
Which is they want the blood of humans.
That's
it's always
right.
the drinking of the blood of humans.
That's right. That's where all the vampires come from. That's why the movies don't stop. One vampire movie after another, they want to get the vampire story locked into the mentality of the victim, so that when they're seized by a real vampire, they say, "Oh well, there's nothing we can do. We're eaten by the vampires," so they just lie down and take it. That's what all the Hollywood stars are working on. And the aliens have all the money because they've been here since Adam and Eve. And they've collected all the huge amounts of money since the beginning of the world.
Okay, let's back up to that. The money that they control, this Illuminati bankers,
exactly,
been around for years. They resurfaced. They have infiltrated everything on this planet. They've infiltrated the churches, and I want to bring something to people's attention. I think it's important when I say this, because we have the Catholics currently have a new pope in there, and he's one of the Illuminati bankers Then you have George Herbert Walker Bush, as I structured it last night so the people would understand. There's 100 of these bankers, and if they take $1 bill, and look on the back, they can see a pyramid with an eye above the pyramid. That's the all-seeing eye. That's Lucifer. And then underneath it, the layers of pyramid. The first layer in that pyramid are the Illuminati bankers. Now, over the years, they hijacked the Knights Templars. And because there were so many of them during the Great Inquisition in France, they burned them at the stake. The King of France ordered them killed, and they split, and many of them weren't the guardians of the Grail, should we say. So a lot of the Templars were not, they were a religious sect, a Christian religious sect, and were should we say, had been chosen or whatever to guard artifacts. Okay? The guardians of the Grail, they call it.
I'm very familiar.
They got hijacked. You're aware of this. They got hijacked over the years by them because they had the shipping and the trading companies. So they hijacked it, just like they have now the Roman Catholic Church, with the Pope being the Illuminati banker, and you have the head of the Jewish synagogues worldwide, Anzar Ben Shri, the head of the Hedron in Israel that makes law in Israel now, once again. He's an Illuminati banker. And you have this, what they call the Council of 13 that come together every year. There's 12 members out of these 100 bankers. And the bankers are broken down for the edification of those of you listening, the European Illuminati bankers, the Oriental bankers, and the American bankers. And for those that want to know, it's Kissinger, George Herbert Walker Bush, W.R. Grace, his son took over for him, Larry Mizell now in Denver, Colorado, that took over for my former father-in-law, the Illuminati banker. Now, Ed, they control 90% of the wealth of the world. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Now, they've controlled this huge block of this wealth over the centuries. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
And it's come down the bloodlines on many of them. Because many of them are sold. They sell their souls to the devil. They sell their children to the devil. And this is what part of it is, the mindset, where they molest their own children. They pass their own children around at these satanic parties and so forth. It's to break down and do multiple personality disorder and the mindset of the children, is it not?
Well, you just have to read Wizard of Oz, the books by Brown, and let your imagination run wild, and you get the picture of what they're doing right now with all the mind control experiments. It's a reenactment of the Wizard of Oz in the movie that they're doing as perfected by the Germans, and that was stuff that was known by Werner von Braun, and it was known by Himmler, and it was known by all of the high-level Germans who made a Nazi group and used the swastika, which was an Oriental sign, to unite all their evil empire. And fortunately for Americans, we got the atom bomb first, and it was not by a scientific triumph. We got the atom bomb by luck, by a matter of weeks. We got the flying saucer technology second. The Germans had it first. They had the atom bomb in final preparation, and Werner von Braun turned to the winner, which was the United States. By the military might, we conquered the World War II, and we had everything. The Europeans lost everything. So we had the Marshall Plan, and we had a string of American politicians which were infiltrated in advance by the aliens. Roosevelt was infiltrated in advance, and there was aliens fighting aliens in World War II. Neither of the sides knew it, that they were aliens, but they were helped by them, and they wanted to destroy everybody so they could eat everybody. And they left the UN this would be the war that ended all wars, they said, but they were full of soup because the UN was an alien creation, and they wanted to make a war that would make everybody broke and destroyed and horizontal so they could eat them. That was the purpose of the UN. Now, if I'm saying that, I'm losing my temper because I have to, because while they pretend to be doing good for everybody, they're evil as they come. And you can't say that without getting whacked. If you get on television or on the radio and you start to tell your personal experiences, you get whacked. Now, everything you mentioned, of all the people and all the installations, I've been in 90% of them. I've been personally involved in all of the activities, and it's a very sad history that I have to tell, but I don't tell it because it doesn't matter. If they're going to whack everybody and the people don't care, then they're going to get whacked.
Okay, now there is a way that, and one of the reasons that you wanted to do this show with me, we've known each other for years, but one of the reasons you wanted to do the show is you wanted to wake up the 250 so-called Christians on this planet to the reality of the true enemy that they're fighting, that it exists among us, and that prayer works, and that if enough people pray against them and put a halt to them and stop this evil, that God will intervene. Is that correct?
That's true. Now, there's a lot of details in that strategy that I'd like to go into, but it's an hour program, and I don't think I could explain it.
Right. Okay.
I was just explaining the beginning, the origin of the aliens.
Right. Okay. Now, Ed, their agenda.
The conclusions are very vocal in my mind. And
okay. Their ultimate goal, though, is to get everybody on the planet not to serve God or worship God, but to worship the devil and self.
Yes.
Isn't that about what it amounts to?
100% true.
Okay. So, by exposing this, where people come awake to it, just like we got government officials know it exists, the military knows it exists, everybody does. But it comes down to the technology, right? And this agreement to 2012 that they could have the bases in exchange for keep supplying us the technology where our computers came from and everything else, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They carrot and stick approach of giving the gifts. You know, there's like a giant Santa giving technology to different countries. They give them computers, they give them invisibility, they give them flying saucers, they give each country a different gift. But if you study Santa Claus, Santa is really Satan. A-N-T-A, and put the N in the last letter.
Okay.
It's Satan. Nobody gets the joke. But
Santa Claus, right. Because Christmas is not about Santa Claus. Christmas is about the birth of Jesus Christ, supposedly.
Of course.
Okay. So by taking the Christians as an example and putting a devil worshiper called the Pope, and to take control of the masses, it's not only the Catholic Church. They've infiltrated the Mormon Church. They've infiltrated the Jewish synagogues worldwide. They've infiltrated just about everything.
Everything.
And they've infiltrated on such a level that people just have no idea. And now it's, of course, we got a total blackout control over the media in the past 15 years. Nothing can get published anymore. None of the truth. All you see is this garbage on TV. Garbage. It's nothing about what's really happening in life at all. How can people, Ed, where can they go to for research that's out there today on the internet to confirm what we're talking about? Where would you recommend they go?
You're asking the person that needs the answer more than anybody else, because I know all the secrets.
And it's not out there, is it?
The government knows all the secrets, and I know all the secrets they know.
Okay.
And I'm
you
the last man standing. I'm 75 years old, and they want to whack me more than anybody else.
Now, Ed, you were almost killed. You were put in a coma. And so what was it, 6 of your colleagues died all within, 6 to 9 months? And you were doing a speech with Bo Greitz, and they hit you with a weapon, didn't they? Didn't
Yes.
they put you in a coma?
Yes. I had a cerebral stroke.
And you're living and breathing because of God and your faith and your belief.
It took me 10 years to learn how to talk again.
Yeah, I remember. I've known you for quite a while.
I remember the classic symptoms of the left leg was paralyzed like a rock, and the left hand was immobile. It was unable to move for 10 years. And in around 10 years, I learned to drive in a parking lot. I went 10 feet forward on the car and 10 foot backwards on the car. But I couldn't even put the key in. Someone had to put the key in for me because I couldn't feel anything with my fingers. And I worked on it because I was stubborn. And I said, you can't knock me out. After all, I was a scientist working with other scientists who do the story cold. And I felt so angry trying to get out. I couldn't get anywhere. And I'm in complete under the microscope from the FBI at the present time.
Yeah, now they've tried to take your Social Security pension fund from you, have they not?
Oh, I don't want to go into the private attacks, but they were luminous. When we talked yesterday, I had a total of $2 in asset, a total of $2 in asset, and I invited my friend to dinner in a buffet, and I said, you pay for the buffet and I'll pay for the tip. That's all I had was $2.
Okay.
So you
called. Give out. Here's what I'm going to do, because I know that you're broke. They've taken your Social Security. They're trying to pay for medical expenses that you had Medicare now and Medicaid. They're trying to make you reimburse them for this.
Yes.
I mean, bizarre. I mean, you're entitled to this as a former government employee. But I'm going to ask you, give out your address, and any of those you listening that would want to give him a donation, please do that.
No, I don't want to do that right now. I'm not here to advertise my...
I know, but I'm reaching out to the people on your behalf. Would you give out an address if someone wants to make a donation? Would you give out an address, Ed Slade?
Well, my address is in the library. It's in the telephone book, and my name is Ed Slade. I'm in Las Vegas. I can be found that way. I'm not soliciting anything because last night I had a meeting based on our broadcast yesterday, and I got some support coming in by friends, and it's working so quickly now that I think I could see sunlight, and I haven't seen sunlight for 20 years. I've been in a hospital in and out from the stroke for 20 years, and I'm living on welfare for 20 years, but I always had contacts with loyal people who understood the problem, and they're scared to do anything. Let me just tell you, what do you do to try to arrest a person who successfully stole $70 trillion?
Now, Ed, you bought
such a person.
You bought bonds. You bought bonds from these different ones. You met with Lawrence Rockefeller. You bought bonds over the years. They convinced you to buy different kinds of bonds, German bonds, Austrian bonds, different bonds. Because they said, oh, yeah, these are going to be worth a fortune one day, and you should buy some. And you invested a lot of your money over the years buying those bonds.
They were worth a lot of money.
But it turns out to be that nobody wants to cash them, do they?
No. That's another problem. If you want to talk about bonds, that'll take you a week just to learn the fundamentals.
But you have bonds that you had bought at the time.
I had 4,000 gold bonds, and they were all stolen from me.
Because they didn't want you cashing them, and two, they figured they'd probably whack you before you ever got around to cashing them.
No, there was a reason. I collected the gold bonds under the United States Secret Service. I was commissioned to go and collect the gold bonds. They said, will you do us a favor and collect gold bonds? At the highest level of this government, they put me on a plane and they directed me to where the gold bonds were, and I got 4,000 safely here, and there was another 1,000 that went through my fingers. They went to the Vatican, and the story was endless. It took 20 years to tell it, but I don't tell it because you don't complain about your failures, and my failure was 4,000 plus bonds, plus another couple of hundred extremely rare bonds, which was also stolen, plus the highest two bonds, which were worth $2 trillion in gold and $17 trillion together, so that I had this year $17 trillion in bonds under my control, and yet I was attacked by the federal district court as being incompetent and being an idiot, and I couldn't write and I couldn't speak, and they're trying to take away my Social Security and trying to lock me up every day. And I'm not complaining because God is on my side. And if I pray to God,
on your side.
If I pray to God, how can I lose? And
you don't lose. Now, Ed, we don't have a lot of time because this is going to kind of be a short show, an hour long or a little after if Chris can run us. I know he has another show coming up. But I can speak these things because I'm not sworn to secrecy. These are things that I've come to know over the years. And I know that they're doing cloning, and it has to deal with alien technology, that humans are cloned. Hope, Arkansas, secret underground base, matter of fact, the hometown of Bill Clinton where he was born. But they've been doing cloning since the 1940s there. They also, and it goes back to, you're familiar with Nikola Tesla, the scientist.
I didn't hear your last word.
I say you're familiar with Nikola Tesla.
My father knew him.
Okay. Now, I can speak it because Nikola Tesla, for those listening, one of our top scientists also, was given drawings that he used. There is the Tesla Society Museum in Colorado Springs that has his works in there. But what he had done is found out by taking two wheels, put magnets on them, placed it at, certain cuts and everything, and turning them opposite each other, they created a vortex of energy, what they called free energy. From that, he found out this thing, when he cranked it up faster, would leave his workbench. So therefore, he turns it the other way and finds out he just developed the first flying saucer, anti-gravity. Then from his works, he found out that he was able to crank this up higher, this magnetic field, and he would have a big black hole open up in front of him called space-time, they refer to it as. Space-time travel. Go into the future, go into the past. They can't change anything, but they have the technology to do that. And now the super collider in Switzerland, which is very dangerous in the hands of the evil, they're able to look into other universes and in just a matter of split seconds with the super collider. But this technology also went into HARP, because Tesla actually did the first HARP high frequency unit in Denver or in Colorado Springs on Pikes Peak, and built a tower, and he created a storm out of it. Lightning bolts were shooting the tower. Now, his technology ended up, I can say this, I know you can't because you're sworn to secrets, I'm not. His technology ended up, if people go to Blockbuster Video or one of the places, they can get what's called the Philadelphia experiment.
Holy mackerel. You want to talk about this in an hour? I can't even tell you the titles of all of these publications and all of these books that are written already. They're
okay, but there's
100% real and 100% factual.
Okay, now this technology is now being used, is called HARP, H-A-A-R-P, to control weather and to create hurricanes and to control the weather on the planet. Is that correct?
Of course.
Okay. So what they've had, and I think you're familiar with it, they've actually, the poles, the North Pole and South Pole, have shifted about 20 degrees in the past 5 to 8 years because of them tapping into this electromagnetic field around the planet. Isn't that pretty much true?
Well, you're getting into stuff that's going to shake up a lot of people just by speaking about it.
Okay, well, I'm here to shake up people. It's called Area 51 Exposed, because the technology is going to destroy mankind.
And you work there, and it's very dangerous because you're verging on getting whacked, and I don't approve of getting whacked in a good cause.
Okay, yeah, I understand your position. But see, I know I'm the Walking Dead man. The CIA calls me the Walking Dead man. Okay? So I'm not worried about it. I know my day's numbered. I know it's numbered. I'm not worried about it. So I'll take and push a little bit further. Their agenda is to force everybody on the planet to worship them, the evil, and to get rid of God off the planet. And so what it amounts to is the control that they have over the government of all the illegal activity that constantly goes on, and the protection they have are from the human side. Is that pretty much correct?
Yeah, but let me bring it into perspective with the Bible. This is not a religious program. It's supposed to be a scientific program, but it overlaps in the following way. If you understand how the angels got destroyed into the fallen angels, you have to do a little psychology. the angels worked endlessly since the second day, because they were created on the second day according to the Zohar. And the first prayer of the first Jew made a prayer that was 7 sentences, and there's a day for each sentence of the week. And the second day has the code of the creation of the devil, and his name is in the code. Satan, S-T-N, without the vowels. And the first prayer is called the Anu B'Koach, which is the most religious prayer in the whole Judaic system. And that prayer, if it's said every day, gives you health and happiness and long life. And religious people keep it a secret, because if they find out everybody's doing this prayer, then they don't feel superior.
Okay, but the point is prayer with God and being righteous in God, should we say, and for those that are righteous, because this was about bringing a message to the righteous and the Christians out here, that prayer is very important, and it's very important to understand who the enemy is. Because, I mean, we have so many churches that are full of good people.
20,000 different sects of Christianity exist.
Okay, and if they only knew that we have them walking among us.
They don't know.
That's what we're bringing this program for, to try to enlighten them. You, as a former Area 51 scientist.
As a former Kabbalist who is one in 1,000 years, a child never was taught the Kabbalist. The Zohar is the foundation of the Kabbalists, and the Zohar is forbidden by secrecy among the Jews that are Kabbalists, never to be revealed until the 7th generation, the 7th millennium of time after Adam and Eve. And it was published in 2001, and I've given the reference where you can get it, and you can get all the supporting documents from any Kabbalist organization that publishes a fistful of documents explaining all the techniques. And it's not a religion, because in Russia they only allow organized religions to practice, but they're not organized to the Russian mentality or to the Chinese mentality. They're not a religion because they consider themselves as reality. They're not a religion, but they say it's true, and it's a reality. And it tells you all the good guys and all the bad guys, and it tells you why. And
okay, I have another question. You're a Christian, right?
I am now.
Okay, and you believe heavily in Jesus Christ?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think we're going to have the return of Christ soon? If you were to give it a timeline, when would you give it?
There's 3 timelines. There's the 2012, which is the common timeline that everybody believes in, and that's based on the fallen angels who landed in Mexico and built the Aztec religion, the Mayan religion, and where they ate people and sliced them up on a pyramid, and they were defeated by Cortez in Spain. When Cortez landed in Spain, these barbarians were wiped out, and they destroyed all the religion of the Aztec and the Mayans. But realizing the Mayans had great intelligence, because their observatories of the sky were very accurate. They had great intelligence. They rediscovered the origins of the Mayan and the Aztec religions in the since 1950. That's been rediscovered. I've been down to Mexico and been taken by aliens who showed me how the UFOs work by putting me up on a pyramid and explaining to me how to pilot them. And I said, it's very simple. I can't believe it. And they said, it's so simple, you'll believe it because you teach rocket theory. You're the person we want to talk to. Here's how you steer it. And I got a lesson in how to fly a UFO before they sent thousands of UFOs down to Mexico and flew them over the city of Mexico City in the last 3 years. And all of that has been suppressed by the newspapers. And they're very nice people. They're beautiful people, and they know how to really compliment you and teach you things. And I've met more than one, and they come and visit like people. They are people, and God was made in the image. The image of man is God, the image of God, and the image of God is the image of the angels, and the angels had 1/3 of them revolting. Now, why did they revolt? Because God had a conference and said, men, angels, I give you immortality. All of the angels are immortal. And I want to tell you, I have an idea, and I want to create a man. And a man is made with one thing that no creature we made has. And they said, what's that? He said, I want to make a man that has the ability to choose anything. I make a man with free will. And 1/3 of the angels said, oh, wait a minute. We don't even have free will. So why are you making a new man to have free will? What about us? And he said, you are angels. Angels means messages. You do what I tell you. And God said, you do exactly what I tell you, and you don't waver. And the angels said, oh, wait a minute. We revolt because you're making a new kind of creation. You're making a man. You're making him superior to the angels. Because if the men want to get together and make war, we don't make war. We're not allowed to make war. And God said, yes, you're not allowed because you're an angel and I made you immortal. So you can't make war. You got a gift. You got a gift of immortality. And God created this holy convocation of angels. And he has been doing this for 1 billion years, for 4 billion years that we know of, for the age of the galaxy, and 17 billion years for the age of the universe. He's been constantly doing all of this machinations by creation. He creates men, and he says that is the key to my idea. I created all the stars. I created all the things of science, and they have no soul. But I create a man. I'll create him with a soul, and I'll tell him to create anything he wants. He create anything at all. If they want to kill each other, I'll let them multiply and kill each other. Because in my idea, my idea is that I will win. I will win, and I will beat anybody who challenges me, because I created the whole universe. And the angels said, wait a minute, we can live forever, so if we fight you, you can't kill us. Ha, ha, ha. So 1/3 of the angels ran away. And God said, okay, angels, you want to run away? Go ahead. So where do you think they ran to? They ran to the Garden of Eden, where God put down the first men He created. And He created Adam and Eve not in the 6 days of creation. He created 7 races. He created them as an afterthought. He created them on the 8th day. There was the 6 days of creation of all the animals and all the people, and He rested on the 7th day. Then on the 8th day, read your Bible in King James Version. On the 8th day, He had a thought. The thought was He forgot to create a man to take care of the garden. If you read it carefully, and Adam was not created in the 6 days of creation. Adam was created in the Zohar. He's the Ha-Adam. His name was Ha-Adam, the Adam. And he was created separately from the other races.
Okay,
and,
now, Ed, real quick, because we're going to be running out of time here shortly. The fallen angels mate with humans, don't they?
Yes.
Like it says in Genesis 6, and they have Nephilim bloodline, they call it.
Yes.
Nephilim bloodline. Now, there's a lot of this bloodline on this planet, isn't there?
Oh, tremendous. Because they've been doing this since Adam and Eve. They were interrupted by Noah. Noah, in the generation of Noah, he killed everybody. And we all are descended from Noah. Adam and Eve and all his children were killed. And then Noah survived. And Noah is the ancestor of all of us.
What can people do, Ed? What's the one thing that you wanted to do this for? What can people do that are listening tonight that they can do to help clean up this filth, evil filth that we have down here, the Bushes, the Clintons, all this evil, all these 100 Illuminati that control this 90% of the wealth of the world?
It's
what
very
can they
simple.
do?
It's so simple that you just have to read the Bible. It says individually you just have to obey the 10 Commandments, and if you take it too seriously, you become religious, and that's not the way to go. You have to believe in your heart that is true and obey relations with other people and be kind and be generous with other people. But the aliens have been on the planet since Adam and Eve, and they are angry at God for setting up a self-sufficient and stable organization. Now, anything God says, the angels want to reverse. So if God says, I want you to pray to me one day of the week in honor that I took one day for myself to commemorate the creation. Just on that day, don't do any work. That's Saturday. And
the Sabbath.
Yes.
And who changed the Sabbath? It was the Pope during, what was it, the 1500s?
No, that was the 3rd century when Pope Constantine was barbaric and he prayed to all the Roman gods. But the Christians were getting slaughtered by Constantine, but they were so serious that they let them slaughter the Christians, and they put them in the arena, and they let the bulls chop them up, and they let the tigers eat them, and they didn't complain. And he said, "This is no fun anymore." So he started killing them and making it a huge empire. But he said, they're nice people, really, so why don't we join them? So they made the Christian religion by Constantine. But he changed a few things. He said, you don't take Saturday to be a day of rest. You take Sunday to be a day of rest. And he did it by himself. And we make a pope. And the pope is the representative in human form of God on earth.
Supposedly. Right.
And he put his treasury of the Roman Empire behind Christianity with those changes, and those changes were lasting for 1,000 years, and they were accomplishing the Dark Ages when he changed all the rules of the Ten Commandments. He changed only one rule, Saturday to Sunday. And then he said, "Oh, you don't tell anybody about who wrote the Bible. We'll tell them who wrote the Bible." And they made confession to make everybody confess to the priest, which was wonderful, because now all the Catholics had the secrets of all the relationships of all the people.
The control files over them so they could use it against them on blackmail the way Bush does the Congress and Senate today.
Yes, of course. And they were responsible for the Dark Ages, and they got out of control because when God said, "Don't do this and don't do that," they did this, and they did that specifically just to get angry with God, because they were angry with God when he said, "You can do anything you want, and you have free will, and go get it." And he didn't make any objection to anybody if they wanted to do anything. And
okay, now the thing is these creatures, these fallen angels, they want one thing. Like Lucifer, their head chief wants, the head fallen angel. They want everybody's soul off this planet, don't they?
They want a lot of things. They want to destroy their position, which they feel that people were superior to angels, and they were an angel, and they could live forever. But people only live under God's rule for 120 years.
Okay, real quick, because we're going to be out of time here in about 10 minutes, I think. They can jump into people. They can inhabit bodies, can't they? Totally like human.
They're masters of the soul because they were taught by God, and they live forever. They know all the details of how to do it, but they won't tell anybody, because the one thing God didn't tell the angels was how do you live forever. The gods won't tell them that, and they won't tell them the secret of creation.
Okay, now, one of the things also that I'm aware of that they developed, DuPont Corporation, back in the early 1990s, is what they refer to as robotoids, some. They're like the movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger played in, that he lost his skin and you can see this whole robot, some kind of movie. And it's almost like subliminal messages that they've done to the people over the years.
Yeah.
But DuPont, we have 1,200 of these robots or more in our U.S. arsenal that look human because they have a skin on them, because they've been able to take what they call mu metal, Mu metal, element 115, and they were able to make it into a living organism, something that would shape. And they took what's top secret called Napoleon, You never told me any of these things, but the bolium is what they make the flying saucers out of. So there's elements beyond what the element chart shows that they have given mankind and shown them how to do it.
You're hitting onto something that
you can't really talk about.
That's really getting into secrecy, because all of those new elements are summarized among scientists by unobtainium. If you want to find out what the UFO is made of, it's made of unobtainium, because you can't obtain it anywhere. So it's called
unattainable. Yeah, the unattainable metal, right. Okay.
But I know.
I call it, because I know the secret on it, it's element 118, the polonium, the unattainable. But there's also something else I want to touch on with you. They're controlling the countries or the economies of the world. They're robbing and looting like the United States at no end with this bank bailout and everything else. What is it that they want to do? They want to take over the economies of the world every dime, don't they? So they can control the people? And you won't be able to buy or sell without what's prophesied in the book of Revelations, I think it's 13?
Sure. That's their goal.
Their goal, to make you and me and everybody else on the planet kneel down and worship them. Is that right?
Yes, because they want, the fallen angels want the world to honor them and worship them the way they used to worship God, because they're angry that God created men to worship God. And they were doing it when they defeated the Dark Ages and they started worshiping God. So the angels, the fallen angels, are angry at people. So anybody that did a good thing for people, they're angry at them, because they want them to be wiped out and left with just people. They call them in modern technology useless eaters. They want to wipe out the useless eaters. And Jesus said, we will always have poor among us. Those are the people they're trying to wipe out. So the way they wipe them out is to get the rich people to buy and sell to each other and let the people starve. And when they starve, they take 1 million people a year and eat them. And when they start eating people, and they can't fight them, because the rich people buy all the technology and they have all the power and court, so they eat all the poor people. And then when they get hungry, they'll start eating the rich people, and there's nothing the rich people can do about it, because they have only the first wave of technology. And God said, if you do anything with technology, you're in trouble. And there's so much in the Bible about that, because God wanted men to take care of the earth. That was Adam and Eve's job. And it was made on the 8th creation. Now, Adam and Eve is the descendant of Adam and Eve. The 8th descendant was Noah. And all the people prior to that were killed by God. And Noah and the 8 descendants of Noah, the children and the wife, were saved. And the people all were, the human people, all were created from them. And the bloodlines don't go to Adam and Eve, because they don't exist anymore. But you have to read this in detail from the Bible, from the Zohar, which preceded the Bible by 1,000 years. And the structure is the angels, the fallen angels, will eat the rich people too. And they will not eat the rich people because they're hungry. They'll eat the rich people because the rich people don't know how to do the work that the poor people are doing. And they'll kill themselves because they'll laugh, the angels will laugh because they made God, they're challenging God who said you can do anything you want. You have free will. So the rich people...
Okay, so take George W. Bush, Skull and Bones. That's where a lot of this initiation into the human side of it, into the satanic world, right? Like Yale University and their secrets, swearing themselves to the devil, selling their souls to the devil, basically.
If you want to know the conversations of the fallen angels with the humans, I have them in my mind. I have never written them down, but I've understood them. I've had all the conversations. I've been to these societies, and I understand all of this. The devil is not indoctrinate the humans in a very clever way. But once they're indoctrinated, I was aware of the specific indoctrinations that your friend and my president, George Bush, you're getting me to the point where I'm ready to tell secrets, but I don't want to because I know in my mind that I've sworn not to tell the secret. But I know the secret, and let it be enough. If I know the secret and I tell the world I know the secret, they'll kill me, even if I didn't tell the secret.
I understand. And I understand. You're sold. You're committed to the agreements that you did with the government. I
know.
But I don't have any agreement with the government. So I think, what I've spoken of my knowledge of a few things, that I could talk about more stuff of this technology, but I won't do it because of national security. Because there's things that the U.S. military has that's come from that I won't even discuss. But they do have, and I think you're familiar with it, E-Systems, Dallas, Texas, has this death ray. And they're able to just hit anybody with it and kill them. They're able to dust people now, turn them to dust on the planet. So at random, they're going to start just, when they decide that our government, or should we say our government officials, all become so evil at the very top end, which it's almost there, that they'll just start dusting people all over the planet. Would you say that's a pretty fair statement?
Look, you're making it simple. It's obvious that anybody with any intelligence sees what's happening, but there's a way out because if you read the chapter on the Bible, on the King James Version, on Judges, I don't know if anybody has read that specific chapter, but the Bible on the fourth book of Judges, and from the fourth chapter of Judges, from the fourth to the sixth chapter, they mention a character named Obama.
Really?
And another character is a female, and the two of them got together. And in that chapter, if you read it with a magnifying glass, he controls the nation for 4 years. Now, a good religious scientist says, "Wait a minute, are they talking about Obama?" And this research is done on that, and the codes are done, and the Bible has a code, letter for letter, telling you the future and the the soul of each of the players, and it's done, and it's hard work, and there are programs to do it, and I've hired people to do it for me because it's tedious. And I have.
Okay, now you're referring to what's out there as far as the Bible code's concerned,
yes,
right?
Yes, there's a
Okay,
lot of
I've
stuff.
seen this. It's very interesting. It has some legitimacy to it, but people get sucked up in it. And you and I both know that there's those out there that are evil, running around, trying to extract out of Christians because of those that, should we say, have the Holy Spirit, that they try to get those involved in this Bible code to reveal something to them that the codes aren't showing. Wouldn't you say that's pretty much a fair, accurate statement?
I would say more than fair, accurate statement, because we've done our own research in the Bible code, and we've taken it to high officials. And high officials, when they read this, they went gulp, and they resigned from President Bush's cabinet.
Now, I'm going to try to find a file real quick, but I found this very interesting because at the time that I was doing a lot of radio shows, I've got probably 2,500 to my credit, a lot of the national shows in the past, and I don't do that many anymore, once in a while with Chris here or someone else, but that's kind of the extent. But over the years, I did a show several times with Kathleen Keating. And you can go to her website, KathleenKeating.com. She's got a bunch of archive stuff up there. But she was Malachi Martin, one of the head priests out of the Pentagon, or out of the Vatican, excuse me, his assistant. Now, Malachi Martin was killed because he was exposing how evil the Vatican was. But what I find interesting in this code, because you brought up this, and I find it very, very interesting, on Leonard Millman. I'm trying to find the files where it's speaking right now, Ed, because I it touches on some of the stuff you're talking about, okay? And if you give me a moment, I'll find it here. But he was the one that hosted the summer and winter solstices parties for these Satanists in Denver, Colorado. And I've got it up under Satanism on stewwebb.com under table of contents about the rituals that they do. And I've had the interview with Anton LaVey's son, Anthony LaVey, who was castrated there, and so forth, at the Kimball Castle, and talked about the big parties that they had at Leonard Millman's house, the pre-ritual parties they refer to it as. Okay? Now, here's what I find. I've got the file here, if it'll open properly. But here's what I find out about Leonard Millman that kind of shocked me, my former father-in-law. This is after I have the devil in my bedroom in 1984. And I find out about this at around the 2000 mark in the Bible code. Here's what it says in the code. It says Millman, Leo, Stu, my name, Kerry, Kerry, my ex-wife's name. It has Bush. It has inverse, reverse, solstice, contrast, versal, contrary. And then it's got my daughter's initials, Amanda Malia Webb, on it. It says Millman, Leo, Stu, Kerry, Bush, Amanda Malia Webb, AMW, inverse, reverse, solstice, contrast, versal, contrary.
Well, you're hitting me for the first time with this information. Let me hit you with information, too.
Okay.
I studied this Bible in detail on the codes, and there are excellent codes, but you're dealing with a string of Hebrew letters which is 800,000 letters long. And the name of God in the Bible, in the Kabbalist Bible, the Zohar, is all the letters from 1 to 800,000 plus connected. That's the name of God. When they say the name of God is 42 letters, that's one code. And the name of God is the name Adonai, that's another code. And the name of God, which is 72 letters, that's another code. But the real name that all Kabbalists believe is every letter is the name of God. So you have 800,000 letters. Now the trick of the code is that the code was discovered in the 1700s by the boy, it's hard for me to switch brains. The rabbi who discovered it was, I know it by my own name, but I'm having trouble now because I'm so excited. The rabbi who discovered it was, he made a sermon and he said, I've discovered the greatest code in the Bible. It has everything that humans have researched up to now and beyond. Everything from the past and the future is in this code. And he says, and the code is, and he dropped dead on the Gaon. His name was Gaon, Gaon. Vilna. It's not clear because I had a stroke and I'm having trouble now.
Do you want to take a break for a minute, Chris?
No, I want to talk about this.
Okay, go
because
ahead.
the code was discovered by the Gaon of Vilna, and he died on a sermon that he was delivering in Vilna, in Lithuania, and it was lost when he said it, but it was discovered by a newspaper man in the last decade. And you know, the Bible code was written by a New York Times editor. And I have the book of the Bible code. In that Bible code, he predicted the assassination of the president of Israel, which was Rabin. And he predicted it a year in advance. And he went to Rabin, and Rabin said, I don't want to speak to him. The guy's got a code telling me I'm going to be dead in a year. Don't invite him here. So he couldn't talk to Rabin personally. So he talked to his associates, and they couldn't talk to Rabin. But a year later, after he made the prediction, Rabin was assassinated. He was assassinated just on the day that the code said he was assassinated. And his wife came to Las Vegas and gave me intelligence that I never gave anyone else, that said Rabin wasn't assassinated by a nut. He was assassinated by his bodyguard. And right after she told me, she died. That's why, how can I tell anybody anything? I have every secret that they've been studying and never found. And I feel that I have all these secrets I can't tell anybody because I've sworn not to. And I have $17 trillion in bonds, and I'm not allowed to cash them, even though the law of the United States says you can cash them. And you get me started, and you go crazy in your analysis. You call everybody a son of a bitch, and you give them names, and it's wonderful. I read it all the time, and I'm happy. And I'm saying, how can I enjoy myself? And I read your articles, and I enjoy it because you come across the truth on every item. I've never found an item that you discussed that wasn't true because I've researched all the things. I've written all the books. I've written one book in my life, and I've not been able to sell a copy even to my mother. She said, "You're crazy." I've given 50 photocopies to the government, and the only thing is one government, two government people left, and they said, "Well, goodbye, Mr. Bush, we love you, goodbye." And that was it. And one government official which was supporting this effort profitably, when I accumulated 4,000 gold bonds, he was whacked, and they whacking, and they got to the point where basically I'm the last one left standing, and you are the last one standing, and you're telling nothing but the truth. And you can get angry, but the Bible says you should be happy and you should enjoy life, and you can't lose if you believe in me, because I'm coming back. And he gives three predictions. There's 9,900 predictions in the Bible. 600 have been authenticated already. There's 300 that are coming, and they haven't been authenticated.
I'm going to ask you something real quick, because Chris, are you still there? Are you there, Chris?
Yeah, I'm still here.
How much time can we? How much time have we got? I know that we're longer than what.
Yeah, running over. I guess you can finish it out till 8 o'clock.
Okay, maybe 10 minutes we could do. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
So that's good news, because I'm overworked already.
Yeah, I know you are, Ed, and I would just ask you this, because you can't talk about it. I've mentioned things that are so top secret that it's unbelievable what I've said, okay? But should we say, you didn't approve of it, I've said it on my own. And I can't ever say that, you're just on the same playing field here as far as, I can't even say that. I'm not anywhere of the knowledge that you have about
well,
this problem.
Read the newspaper. If you just read the newspaper and invert everything they say, you get the truth, because the aliens have deceived everybody with the most complex deception possible. And I'll tell you just a quick summary. When the Israeli people were given the secret of invisibility, the first thing they did was make a treaty with the United States that they're friends, and they worked together. So they gave each other weapons, and they gave each other military plans. But the first one to discover invisibility was the Israelis. And the first thing they did was they sent an invisible man right into the Pentagon. Now, are you aware of that?
No, I wasn't.
Holy mackerel, then I told you the secret. Now I'm in trouble of being whacked, but I don't care, because they whacked my mother, who is 93 years old, and I'm trying to tell her she lived to 120 by God's word, and she doesn't believe me. I said, if you don't believe me, you got to listen to God. She don't read the Bible, and she don't believe me. And I said, but you can live to 120, but she's in a nursing home, and she died this month. And I see her every week, and she said, well, it's so bad that I'm a Baptist now, but I haven't baptized anybody. I've tried, and I haven't baptized my own mother. And she says baptism is not Judaism. And I said, yes, it is. Because Jesus was a Jew, and all the disciples were Jewish.
You got the Israeli Jewish nationality, don't
Yeah. What?
And you're born again Christian.
I'm a born again Christian, but I was born a Jew. I was born a Levite Jew, and because I'm a Levite, and I went to Rothschild's office, and Rothschild has a wonderful assistant who is a Levite. His name is Levi. When I went to see him, I spoke to Levi for an hour, and I learned all the bullshit that Rothschild is into. And
question for you, Ed. You've met with kings, you've met with queens, you've met with the Rockefeller, Lawrence, I think it was, Rothschild. I mean, you did things in behalf of the government for them.
yes. And if you want to know the secret, the first thing I did when I got a secret clearance, the first thing I did was put my name in Who's Who in America, and I put on the bottom, I'm cleared for secret. I was so happy. And the CIA got a hold of me, and they said, you jerk, you're telling your secrets already. We're making secrets one day, and you're in business already. You idiot. So they have to deny I'm a secret agent because he can't tell you his secret to the world. So they said, hey, wait a minute. If we tell everybody he's not secret, we can get something out of him. So they said, you're not secret. So they sent me to Russia, and they looked me up on all the papers, and the Russian said, oh, you're impersonating. You're not a secret. We checked with the CIA. They say you're not a secret. Hi. So as a result, I got invited to all the secret KGB meetings because I'm not a secret. I was a secret. So they said, you're traveling on very rough ground. We can't tell you, we can't give you any medical, we can't give you insurance, we can't give you salary, but we can put you in Colt Firearms and you can become the manager of all weapons. And we'll tell the management that you can go anywhere, do anything. It's up to you. You don't have to listen to the president. You listen to us. So they put me in Colt Firearms, and I made 200 weapons for Colts. And I traveled all over the world on Colts payment for travel. And that was the benefit they gave me. And they didn't tell anybody I was secret. And they said, you're not secret. And they told me what's coming. So I pretended all around Europe that I had a secret cell phone before they invented cell phones. And I would whisper in the cell phone. And I'd say, well, you want to tell me a secret? I'll shut off my cell phone. And I put my hand in my pocket, and they said, let's see it. Oh, I can't show it to you, but I'll shut it off. I played a game with the world by telling them I was not a secret agent, and the government backed me up. As a result, I was at the highest level for 50 years. I was in the government for 50 years. But when I had my stroke, the guys in the government did it to me. And I know who did it to me, and he knows I know. And it's a silent war with the government because they said, wait a minute, we got all these weapons, we got these airplanes, we got these bombs, we got these secret computers. We'll conquer the world ourselves. We don't need anybody. We won the Second World War. We helped the First World War, and we could make war. And the government changed around the 1947 is when they invented the CIA. And I was coming out of high school, and I knew all the people at that time that created the CIA, and Gunderson was a friend of mine, and I know the beginning of the CIA. And the first thing the CIA did was to find out who is the intelligent people that are coming up. And they had me programmed from high school that I was investigated throughout my career. And when I got to college, I was asking all the questions when nuclear science was secret. You couldn't tell anything. So I was asking my professors, oh, what's this? How does this work? And they wouldn't tell me. And I asked so many questions, I made enemies with every professor in college. And I was graduated last in my class, and I was left back. At that point, the CIA gave me examination for the National Science Foundation. And I came in, I think, second in the whole country on science. I got a prestigious National Science Foundation award for all my college expenses and all my payments. It was a big prize, and I was nurtured by the CIA because they knew that all I do was ask questions, and I got all the answers I wanted if I knew the right question. They said, here, we will give you a couple of questions. And they started giving me questions, and they sent me to Russia 3 times. I met the presidents 3 times, and I met the advisors, and I met the spies. And the spies, we checked you out. You're not a scientist. You're pretending you're the CIA. Huh? And they say, CIA, you're CIA, what's the secret of this? And that happened to be a secret that was released by the U.S. And I say, oh, the secret is this. And I tell them, they think it's still a secret, but the latest information was the secret was released. It's not a secret anymore. But they didn't know. And I tell them, and they flip. They said, we've been trying to find the secret for years, and this guy knows. He knows something. So they invite me into a meeting, the KGB. I met all the KGB people. I met the people who were in charge of all the gold in Russia, and they were arresting everybody. And with I can't even remember the names. I've been to the guys they arrested, Putin and all his people. Putin is really Rasputin. He's the grandson of Rasputin. The Russians know it. Every Russian knows Rasputin is Putin. And Putin comes to America. Nobody knows it. But I know it. And when I talk to a Russian, they say, you're not a CIA. You're Russian. Say something in Russian. So I tell them, and they say, holy shit, you talk like a Russian. You're a Russian. My grandfather was a Russian. And you want to hear something? My grandfather came to this country in 1905 after Russia was defeated by the Japanese. And they killed everyone in his brigade because they were all Jews. And the Tsar was sending the Jews to fight the Japanese. And he figured, well, the Jews are pain in my butt, so we'll send them all to Vladivostok and put them in the battle. And they put my grandfather into battle with wooden rifles, with no bullets. And they shot the hell out of the brigade. They killed everybody in the Russian brigade. And the generals stood behind the line, and any Russian who wanted to run away, the generals shot him. The Russian generals shot him. And when my grandfather ran and saw the Russian general, he was the luckiest Russian in the whole brigade because the Japanese machine gunned the Russian general. And my grandfather ran away from the battle. And in 1905, he escaped, and the Russians gave up. They lost the war, but they got rid of all the Jews in the brigade, and they were happy. And the reason my grandfather went to fight was the Russians made freedom of slaves in 1831 by Tsar Alexander back in 1931, and the English freed the slaves in 1851, and the United States freed the slaves in 1865. So the history of the treaties and the laws were started of 1831, and that got my Russian grandfather to join the army, because they said, well, the army freed the slaves, the Tsar is good, so he went to fight, but he didn't expect to get a wooden rifle with no bullets. And he went across the whole Russia on the railroad that was built by the robber barons in America. They built the Trans-Siberian Railroad, and my grandfather took a ride for umpty-ump thousand miles from Moscow to Vladivostok, and he was put like a cattle in the car, and he ate nothing, and he spent nothing, and he had no money because they didn't pay him. They didn't pay anybody. They took him because they're free, and they were killed. And he escaped to Vladivostok, and he got on the Canadian steamer, and he had to bullshit his way to America by pleading with the captain to go to Canada. And the captain let him stow away on a boat. He came to Canada, and he walked from Canada to New York in 1905.
He wanted over here pretty bad.
Now,
Ed, we're gonna wrap this here in a minute.
Oh,
okay.
I have to tell you this. My grandfather had children in New York. They were born. My father was born in New York. My grandfather was born in Russia. My grandfather never had a paper for a passport. He just walked to America, and he met a Russian lady who he married. He knew a Russian lady from the same town he came from, and he married her. So I am a national American, and I've gone through American law, and I've become a diplomat by law, and I have the support of all the highest members of the government, and I have the ID of a diplomat on me right now, and if I walk out, I could be shot, and they take it out of me because they've tried to kill me 4 different times, and they've stolen everything I have, and I'm blessed to be on this radio show, and I'm complaining because you got me mad. Now that I'm a diplomat, I'm under the federal jurisdiction of a warrant for being a patriot, and I've got an inch-thick file on the docket sheet on my case, and you want to send me money, that's all I need to have a bullet in my window. I don't need that now. I'm going to fight because God is on my side, and you're making me brave by talking to the world, because I'll let you know the secrets that are revealed, that are free to reveal. I know the secrets. When I was 5 years old, I gave a lecture in kindergarten. I gave a lecture I went to high school because my teachers said, this kid is so bright, we'll send him to high school. And I told them, who's going to win the war with the Russians and the Nazis? because they were both evil. But I told them the Nazis had a great army, but the Russians had great population, great land, and the Russians had great I'm losing my control. They had great patriotism, and they would fight to the end. You know, and my grandfather would tell all political stories that happened to him, and it was in the family. When I heard all of these stories, I became a patriot. He said to my father, never talk Russian to this kid. You want him to grow up to be an American 100%. And I was made a patriot by my grandfather, who couldn't speak English, but he wanted a patriot in the family.
No, you are a patriot, and you're a great American. You've been one of our top scientists.
Yeah, and I wanted to go to the moon, and my father knew Tesla, and I got 700 patents from Tesla. I had a book, and the first guy that I found out to be a scientist stole all the patents. He stole my book. That was the first deception, and I carried all the intelligence in a cart across the country, in a 26-foot cart with all my possessions. And every time I went somewhere, they stole all my books that were scientific. And I have result now of about 1,000 books that I keep in my home, and I read them every day because I love science. I have a natural ability for science. When MIT sent the guys down to investigate my knowledge of language, they said, we investigated all the scientists, and you have the number 2 in the world. I said, come on. I said, who's number 1? They said, Kennedy could read 6,000 words a minute. You're almost there, but you're number 2.
Interesting. Now, let's end it with this. You remember Kennedy, President John F. Kennedy.
What do you want to know about John Kennedy?
Well, John Kennedy was going to release. He was going to release and tell the people. And Chris last night, after they hit your phone and blew your phone apart for being on the air with me, and with Chris, he played the Kennedy secret societies, that it would be all revealed. And he intended on doing it. And that's part of the reason he got whacked, besides eliminating, quote-unquote, the Federal Reserve, saying he was going to break the CIA up in 1,000 pieces and sign the executive order to eliminate it.
Yeah, I was in the CIA when that happened. And I said, what's going on? But I found out all the secrets. That's why I'm the last man standing.
Now, with that, Chris, if it could be available, I'm just going to say, because I've got to get off here too, and Ed, I thank you for doing the show. I hope between last night and tonight, the people will understand our enemy. And you wanted this done because you want to wake up the 250 million Christians, as you put it, on this planet to start praying against the enemy, to get serious about it, knowing that we have them among us, the fallen angels, and they're walking the planet, they're in human form. And you want it cleaned up. You want to see this world cleaned up. Is that not correct?
Of course.
With that, I want to say thank you for coming on with me. And I wish you the best, and I'll pray for you and ask God to keep angels of protection around you, because he says in Psalms 92, if you ask, he'll give them. But Chris, if you have available, if you got anything to say, I don't want you to say it, but I would ask Chris to play that tape of John F. Kennedy after we end here. But what would be your last thoughts?
Oh, there's so many thoughts. I have multiple thoughts. My only thought is that God has said in Revelations that the fallen angels will start killing the people, and there will be no end to their slaughter. And only when the people have died, enough people have died illegally by the fallen angels, they can't stop the fallen angels. They're too smart. That's when Jesus will come. And if you want to get a strategy to get Jesus, you got to pray to Jesus and do what Jesus said. And he said the most important thing is the stories of the Bible, just the stories of who did what to whom. The stories are important, more important than the commandments. He said, Jesus said, do unto others as they would do unto you. That's the most important thing. And what has happened, that the angels, the fallen angels, have made things so good and easy in this country that they're not doing the good things that the Bible illustrates. And they're just having a good time. And we're like the people in Noah's time. And the people in Noah's time had a good time. And they were very unholy. And that's what's happening here. And when you tell them God created something, they don't believe you. They really don't believe you. And even the Christians who are praying to Christ on Sunday, they're praying on the wrong day, because the Judeo-Christian is a continuous book. The Old Testament and the New Testament are written by the same author, and that's another program. That's a program that lasts for months to explain why. Because the Old Testament says very clearly that God created the world, and all that is seen is a false illusion. What you see is not what is real. What is real is what you can't see. That is what Jesus was trying to tell you. What you see is an illusion. He is an illusion. He was created before the foundations of the world, before the first day. And Adam was created on the 8th day. And the eighth generation from Adam was Noah. And all the generations were eliminated until Noah. And Noah's generation survived by God. And all those people survived their generations. All of our people are us. All the people that we have here came from Noah. And when you study the Zohar for 75 years and figure it all out, you can't hold back the knowledge that you have, that all the facts fit together. And when you tell the Supreme Court, I've been in the Supreme Court without an attorney, and I've had a case, and I had a case against Mexico, and I made a lot of enemies on Wall Street, And I worked on Wall Street. I was a broker, a vice president on Wall Street, and I didn't make any friends, and I didn't make any progress at all. But I made $2 million, and I couldn't raise $2 for dinner this week when you invited me on this program. And I'm telling you all at once, and I don't want to tell you my personal problems because the world has a bigger problem than I have, and I forget my problems when I listen to I read the newspaper and find out that they're giving $900 million to a guy who left town and became a Swiss citizen. You know, you can buy off the bankers, and you can.
Yeah.
And you
Mark Rich is an example. Yeah.
And I know the stories of who got the money and how they got the money and who gave it to them and who got killed on the way. And I know where all the bodies are buried, and I don't want to tell anybody. And I can't tell you because if I tell you,
You've said enough, Ed, and with that, why don't we end it? Why don't we end the show? And once again, I'll say thank you for coming on with me. I know you're getting tired. I am too. I'm getting hungry. It's dinner time. Ed?
My record is 8 days without stopping.
Well, that's interesting.
It's not the world's record. It's only 11 days is the world's record if you can talk on something important.
Interesting. I know that you've had a very interesting career. You've had an interesting life, and I know that right now you're in a bind. And I'll just ask everybody to pray for you. And with that, Chris, do you have that tape of Kennedy's speech that we could end the show?
I certainly do. I want to thank everyone for coming on. This was Ed Slade, former Area 51 scientist and government employee, Stu Webb hosting. We want to thank Stu for this interview. And this is Freedom Fighters for America World Radio, and we will leave you with the JFK Secret Society speech. So here it is.
Thanks very much for the opportunity.
I am asking your help.
Thank you.
The tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security. So it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance. confident that with your help, man will...
Well, the last part was man will be what he was meant to be, free and independent. And with that, I want to thank everyone for coming on tonight. This is Freedom Fighters for America Radio at www.freedomfightersforamerica.com. Listener supported, so if you can, kick in. If not, well, God bless. And we will end this. We're going to end this total show tonight with an old ditty from High Noon, okay, from the movie.